What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the final day of the LCS Super Week and the LCS Waiting Room. For those of you who are keen Twitter users, you might already know who this man in the middle is, joining us for the entire day. But for those of you who don't, it's none other than Parth. Parth, thank you so much for jumping on the desk with us today. How you doing, my friend?
Not too bad. Excited.
Excited? All right, I hope so, because we got 5 whole games of action coming today.
I'll keep you to that.
Yeah, I was like, you got to sell me on the excitement.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, now I'm sold. That's it. Now I'm sold. Okay, let's dive into some of our waiting room topics. We're going to kick something off with a quick correction. Thank you very much for the help on finding that word. Yesterday, we put out this graphic, and some keen observers noted to us that this was actually incorrect. And so overnight, we worked very hard on correcting this graphic. I think we can put that out for everybody. There you go. We had
Beautiful.
mistakenly swapped the 2 players, and so the stats were attributed to the wrong person. There you go. Now that's out of the way.
There we go.
Moving on.
I appreciate
Beautiful.
Next up, we have a tweet, and we're playing a little game to go along with it. It's called Guess the Tweeter. Why does every person I meet from Denmark need me to try their licorice, especially when Ram Kugler and Faxi Kondi exist? It's like if Americans shoved green bean casserole in your face instead of apple pie. Who
What?
is this?
This sounds like I'm just gonna go for it. You go first.
Oh no, I saw this tweet and I'm kicking myself because I just like scrolled past it. And I
Oh
was like,
no. You
So
don't
it's a
know who
recent
it is?
tweet.
You don't know who it is. Do you know who it is?
I don't know, but I'm gonna
feel
throw
like
out a
I
guess.
know this.
All right.
I'm gonna say Santorin.
Parth, do you know who it is?
I do know who it is.
Yes, Parth knows who it is. How do you guys not know who it is?
What? How am I supposed to know
How do
who
you
it
know who
is?
this is?
Okay, people terrify me,
People terrify me.
Okay, well, there it is.
which then means that social media terrifies me. If you notice, I'm
Yeah.
actually incredibly bad at Twitter
Let's get the reveal here.
by design.
Parth knows who it is
Who is it, Parth?
because it's Parth.
I can't believe you guys don't follow me.
How do you guys not follow his Twitter
This is
account
how I
religiously?
saw it.
Seriously, you scrolled right past his Twitter.
I just
I
like
see how
Just
it's
right past. Now we know the weight of Parth's words.
Wait, so
to
who,
both of my
what
analysts.
players were making you try
Yeah,
licorice?
explain.
Santorin, Bjergsen,
Do I get part marks for that one?
Svenskeren.
Oh, so you know a lot of really
Another
famous Danish people, huh?
I mean, a follow-up to this was, I think a significant number of Danish players in the LCS now have played at TSM at some point.
That is actually probably true. What is Ram Kugler and Faxi Kondi?
So
I've not
Ram
heard
Kugler-
of those things.
My pronunciation's probably awful.
Mine-
too,
so
but
is mine.
It's like from what it's described to me, it's like a Danish bakery. They just take over all the leftover chocolate and stuff, mix it with rum, shove it into like a tight ball. That's what it is.
That sounds
That
amazing.
sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Faxakandi is like their Sprite.
Ah,
Okay.
interesting. All right, so no real verdict on the licorice. Is it better than normal licorice? Like
I feel like it's an experience you need to have yourself. So
Okay,
I'll let
well-
someone else sell you on it.
I'll
That's-
wait until I run
Is
into
it
some
just like a
Danish
really,
player
really
here in the
strong
LCS.
Yeah,
Anise
it's like
flavor?
it's really bitter. I just
like
don't understand.
eating an anise
but-
pod.
I don't know what that is.
Star
little, like,
anise. Yeah,
star-
yeah. It's a
Yeah.
spice,
Yeah.
yeah.
for lack of a better explanation. All right, well, I guess I'll have to hit up Bjergsen, see if I can get my hands on some Danish licorice.
I want
All
some
right,
rum
from
cream.
here on to some real LCS-related stuff. We showed this tweet at the beginning of the weekend. Will we be over 500 by the end of Super Week? And categorically, on Waiting Room, everyone said no, that will not happen.
This was before the weekend.
This was on
Yeah.
Friday, so before any of the games got played, everyone said categorically no, because they would have had to win all 3 of their games to be over 500. Well, guess what? They're now sitting at 4-4 with 1 game to go in the weekend. So there's a distinct possibility that this happens. So I'm going to turn first to the 2 that were on that day, Friday, who didn't think it could
Yeah.
happen. Where are you at now? Are you starting to reconsider?
I mean, today is a very winnable game for both teams, right? Because it's IMT Golden Guardians. I actually think this could be the most interesting match, or at least like one of the closer ones today. I like a lot of adjustments both of these teams have made. But yeah, props to you, Mortals. You've proven me wrong thus far.
Raz, what do you have to say for yourself?
Look, they need to win this one game. I'm gonna hold on to that one thing between them and Golden Guardians. We'll find out by the end of the day. I was wrong in 99% of the predictions yesterday.
Yeah, you struggled hard.
That one was rough.
Yeah, 1 in 5.
I had a lot of faith in FlyQuest. So,
You did. We'll talk about them later.
yeah, I'm sure we will.
Parth, what about you? I mean, obviously now we have the benefit of seeing them at 4-4, but what's been kind of your assessment of this Immortals roster as they look to complete the over 500 first round robin?
Sure. So, I mean, they have a lot of veteran players on their team. And I think that even if they had a slow start, the meta really suits PoE specifically with Corki, Victor, Ari. So I'm not surprised they're finally picking up wins. So I do think it's going to be 50-50. It really depends on like how draft and what things happen. But they've already won 2 games. They already had a change in the bot lane. So if I were a betting man, I would kind of lean more towards them making it happen.
Okay.
Yeah, and their games have been far more cleaner. Just their past game alone, it's been a slower play, a pace game. Their Baron setup was great. It felt as though that the fundamentals had been far more cleaned up, which I appreciate, and it makes it so much easier now to kind of back them as a team. At first, the only thing that was keeping us going was Jat's prediction of, well, they're not the worst
They're not
team.
the worst.
And now it feels like they're only getting stronger. So it'll be fun just to be able to see if they can create some separation between themselves and Golden Guardians tonight.
Yeah, I think the most impressive thing for me has been how they have been able to use Revenge's pressure, because I think one of the things that we saw in some really great things they did in some of their games was that after a while, especially in the TSM game, there were like 3 specific plays where they just kind of ceded their advantages in team fights. And then yesterday we saw them again doing a really good job of leveraging his split pushing pressure to contesting objectives. So that was really nice to see with stronger team play.
Yeah, and their bot lane really stepped up. I know that they're adding an arrow, of course, just from their yesterday's game, but Wild Turtle on day 1 was just phenomenal. And
popped
that's
off.
exactly, and that's what they really needed, because throughout the split, it felt as though bot lane had a lot of inconsistent performances. And so if they can find just good, consistent lanes from bot lane, and of course with the continued growth that they have as a team, that they will for sure rise up.
Now, from Immortals, a team on the rise, I want to hop over to TSM, a team that is still struggling to find their footing here in the LCS. Only 1 win to their name, of course, with the substitution that happened just after 4 games. We've got this comment here from Brendan Schilling that says, so what's the next plan for the TSM side? Do you swap? You swap to Yursan, but still can't win. The original version is on standby with Shenyi and Academy. Feels kind of like the team is uncertain in their direction. And so I kind of lay the same question at the feet of the 3 of you. You know, what would you do if you had that, organizational control? Do you like the Yursan experiment and keep going with that and start investing in that development? Is it time to start thinking about trades and free agents and augmenting the team differently? Support staff changes, like where do any of you land on how this TSM roster finds a way to gather some wins?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously with TSM, they've changed their entire structure from like the VP of esports to a new coaching staff, a new manager, and obviously a new team in a direction, right? And so you can't think of this as like the old TSM. This is basically a brand new organization joining the LCS with their philosophy. And they've obviously met a pretty significant challenge in the first few weeks. And so I think it really depends on what they want to do. If they want to focus in the short term, then they can potentially look to make some changes. If they want to use Spring Split to just kind of experiment and figure out like, hey, this is philosophically what works for us in terms of game style, versus if they think now we just want to focus more on the short term, then they can make more drastic changes. If they want to just see things through with this kind of core, and then look to potentially make changes in the summer or next year, then they can use that. This year very much for this organization is just, we're going to try a new direction, see where things go, and then we'll make changes based on what's happening.
Exactly, which is why I think any drastic changes like free agency stuff should be held off until the end of Split. If they want to take the experimentation to its fullest. I wasn't the biggest fan, of course, without really knowing what happened internally on moving Shenyi to Academy. But I've been a fan of what Yursan has, kind of shown me. I think, hey, now that you're committing to Yursan a little bit, just stick to the course. Have faith in what you've been grinding in scrims and in practice, like the fundamentals, and then work with that and see how the end of the split goes. Just knowing that in Spring Split, at least it's not like last year where Spring Split records moves into the summer.
Yeah.
And knowing that, hey, if we're not going to be the first place team here and you're not going to be going to, an MSI, then work on what you've been kind of committed to in Spring Split, see what is salvageable till summer.
Who should TSM be playing through, Emily?
I mean, I think they're still gonna play through tactical, or that's what like they've done thus far, which I don't think is a bad idea for more than a few reasons. Tactical has proven that if you, even through his time on TL, if you do give him resources, he's typically going to deliver on that, especially in team fighting. But then additionally, right now, the way the meta is, it's just a lot more of either a bot lane focused meta if you're contesting a 2v2, or these broader team fights just because of how slow the game is right now overall. And we've seen that in TSM's games, where even in these games where they've made like monumental mistakes, tactical has taken over an entire game because he's been given those resources and because he's been buffed by the team. Obviously, they have definitely had to move away from the roaming support top, which was kind of how they were giving a lot of those resources and like kind of hard shoving them bot side. And we haven't seen that same.
Speaking of tactical,
no.
He tweeted this out an hour ago.
I was filling in some of the alphabets. It seems like it's likely tactical greater than Hansama. I'm just putting that out there.
It sounds about right.
Yeah, so like, that's my bet on that one as I saw that tweet. But to kind of answer that, I think the easiest way for a team would probably be to play towards bot lane, just because give bot lane best matchup. It's easier to kind of round around the times in which like bot lane has a good dive timer, and then you can just like, as the game goes on, just say, okay, our strong side of the map is going to be through our AD. But I think if their issues are not based on communication, and some of the fundamentals obviously take some time, I would say play through jungle. Like, Spica is such a talented player. Really early on in the splits, even through some of their failures, they had some large advantages through Spica. And how some of their level 1s have gone, most famously like the 1 versus Golden Guardians, which they threw away. But like, Spica is he's an incredibly smart player. He knows what he needs out of certain matchups. If he's going to invade for Raptors or something like that, he knows how to kind of get people aligned on that strategy. It just hadn't been paying out. So if they get things together, ideally they'll play through jungle.
Yeah, and we'll hope that they do, right? As Parth, as you mentioned, this idea that you kind of have to look at this TSM, while being one of the longest standing orgs in league history, as kind of a new franchise, a new org coming in with different philosophies. TSM has spent all of 2022 rebuilding their team and their identity, specifically moving into this spring split. And now the loss of their franchise player was obviously the biggest catalyst for all of this. The King of the North, Bjergsen.
Bjergsen's not a guy who leans into controversy. I don't expect him to. He's gonna want to win. He's gonna want to smash them, probably. But he's gonna try and treat it like any other game. And I imagine when he goes up against TSM for the first time, it's just gonna be another one of his hundreds of stage games.
Oh, that's a quadra kill for Bjergsen. He's looking for the penta. Can he get it?
That's why he's the MVP of the North American LCS.
Year after year, when TSM succeeded or failed, it was actually Bjergsen succeeding or failing. 8 finals in a row, winning 4 MVPs.
Here comes your Jhin!
Winning 6 titles.
Give it up one more time for the MVP. Oh my word!
He's not outwardly flaunting about it. He just kind of goes to work, puts in the effort, but you know he's going to deliver. After 8 years, Bjergsen has gone to a different team to start the next chapter of his legacy. And this weekend, we're going to get to see him play against TSM for the very first time. TSM without Bjergsen has not been going well so far. It's not completely clear from watching who the leader exactly should be in game. They have a lot of searching to do. A win would be hugely meaningful to show at least a sign that TSM can succeed without Bjergsen. in terms of Bjergsen playing against TSM for the first time, he doesn't have to say anything. He can just let us play to the talking.
Bjergsen's over the wall. Package delivery there. Easy money for Bjergsen.
Yursan is unstoppable. Next is gonna fall, and Team Liquid picking up where they left off. A quadra kill! The Burger King is back!
Bjergsen arriving at the arena just moments ago, preparing for his first ever matchup against his former organization in TSM. I think in a lot of ways, Jat said it best, though. This is a guy who's long been known to say it with his play, you know, rather than his words. And Parth, I want to turn to you because you, of probably most people in all of competitive League of Legends, have spent more time around Bjergsen as a competitor than anyone, and there's always been kind of this mythos around him about his work ethic and all of these kinds of things. So I just kind of want to turn to you and get your take on Bjergsen as a competitor.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people think of him as like this consummate professional, and he always puts in the work. His work ethic and everything he does behind the scenes is really legendary. But sometimes it kind of takes away the human element of who he is. You just kind of treat him as like this kind of robot who just does like this machine who does everything right. But I think the reason why Bjergsen has been really impactful behind the scenes, and everyone who's worked with him can kind of attest to it, is he has a part in everything, and he's not afraid to make his mistakes, own his own mistakes, and kind of build on them. And that's what he kind of inspires everyone to do, you know? I think a big reason of what you're seeing TSM struggle right now is you're kind of missing that anchor piece who kind of had a little part and influence in everything. So if like in terms of what players to pick up, how to build a team, what philosophies you want going in. So even right now when you see TSM kind of play the game, when you form a new team, you have two different directions you can go. You can either experiment trying to figure out like where different parts of the puzzles fit in, or you can pick like one identity or one core thing that works for you, perfect it and kind of expand past that. You need to figure out like, hey, on the coaching side, am I going to be the person who tells the players what to do, or am I the person who's going to be guiding, and different approaches in that way. And I think Bjergsen was a big part of leading a lot of the behind the scenes of how all of these things worked. And so I think the loss for TSM and Bjergsen moving over to TL isn't just as a player and a leader, but also like the philosophical like anchor that TSM was. And which is why I think this matchup is interesting, not for like the Bjergsen beating TSM thing. And it's like Jat said, I don't think Bjergsen is going to think anything about beating TSM because he already know the legacy that he had there.
Yeah.
For him, it's just going to be another game.
Yeah, and it reminds me, kid, it feels like in any sport, in any game, legends, all they really care about is just no matter what to take the win. Behind the scenes, I know a lot of players will always think about their own personal performances, either micro and macro, how they can get things done. But of course, like being able to recognize that, okay, if my jungler's having difficulties or if my top laner's having difficulties, like what can I do as a player out of the game to help them and help us as a team kind of etch out a direction, or just even if it's just a simple conversation to make things easier. And so it kind of has always felt watching TSM throughout the years that, hey, they've had struggles, right? They've had bad weeks, they've had hard splits, but they've always come and rallied when it mattered most. When playoff times have come in, or in the last few weeks of the split, and it always felt like Bjergsen was the major reason for that.
And I mean, it wasn't even just some of the stories behind the scenes where, like, if a player is struggling with something on a personal level, he'll like take them out to dinner and like talk them through it. If there's an issue on like the management side about like, hey, like we have too much sponsor things or X or Y, he'll kind of speak up and be like, hey, as a representative of these players, we're going through a hard time right now. Let's move these to like off season. These are all like the important decisions that you need to make as like a leader of the team, and he was more than that. So again, it's it's very underrated about like the human element of like the things that he took care of.
I mean, so without a doubt, you know, a loss on the TSM side of things. But I'm also curious how, you know, this player who has for so long been a piece of a specific ecosystem in TSM, now choosing to shift to another one in Team Liquid, will ultimately perform and how he'll fit into that, right? You know, it's always been at least a curiosity or even a desire of mine to see Bjergsen under a different banner, if for nothing else than to just see him under a different system. What happens when you give him a different environment, different tools, different resources? What kind of a player can he become? It could be better or worse, to be fair. But you know, I was always a little disappointed when I saw his initial retirement announcement to move into coaching before moving to another team. Just wanted to see a different coach, different team kind of situation. We finally get that opportunity, but just as a note, his accolades, I mean, truly one of the LCS's greatest of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I think talking to him before the season started, there were two things he stressed. And the first was that, like, he wanted to let his teammates know. I thought it was really interesting that he really wanted to let his teammates know, like, I'm not going to be back to my, like, championship form for a while. But he had so much confidence. I know we've talked so much about how all of these players really wanted to play with Core JJ. They also really wanted to play with Bjergsen. Like, this is a team of players that all really wanted to play together on the same team. And so I thought that kind of like wherewithal to be like, I'm so happy that my teammates trust me enough to be like, I have a long way to go. And we even talked about this in the first few weeks of lock-in, how we were like, he's looking a little shaky.
Yep.
Until he had that Zilean game, I believe, in semifinals, where Bwipo called it out after he got player of the game for that. So I thought that was really good. And the trust that TL had in him to be like, we know you're going to get back to form. It's just a matter of time. And you are surrounded by so many amazing, talented people that we can give you that grace period. And I think it also is kind of not the reverse of what Parth is saying, but I have no doubt that he's doing a lot of that stuff behind the scenes still, but also on this Team Liquid team specifically, he doesn't have to.
And that's my thing, is that, like, I feel like with this team, probably the most accolade/experienced team that he's been on, with a Worlds finalist in Bwipo, World Champion, and Core JJ, and of course Hansama and Santorin being so strong for so long. That's something, my goodness.
Take a look at this.
That's something to
This
take
is
a
a
look
time
at.
lapse of every single one of his player portraits, from all the way from EU to the many TSM years. The growth of the beard itself.
If you've seen How to Train Your Dragon, it's like the main character when he was first there.
Yeah.
Then he,
I like how now we're in the beard trimming phase, right? So it's like you get to that point of like, I've proven I can grow it. Now it's time to manicure it, kind of thing. I think we've all experienced that at some point. Yeah, Bjergsen, except for Emily. Emily has not experienced that.
I have not, sadly.
Sadly?
It's an experience I am missing.
I don't know. The makeup artist might be able to help you out with
hair.
that in some way.
My head hair.
There you go.
Maybe.
There you go. Bjergsen as a player has been such an interesting career to track, again, because in so many ways he demands the spotlight because of his play, but not because of his bravado or his personality per se, right? Again, kind of the way he even showed up on the scene, it was just like, okay, here's this hot young 17-year-old in EU. TSM's going to make this choice to just make him their franchise player off of, a single year's worth of, play at that point. And then he kind of just continued to put up the numbers, right? And there's just this aura around him because of that. But he's not, for example, a double lift who, while having, a near equivalent amount of accolades and accomplishments, has a different way of walking around, and kind of showing off his ability to the world.
Yeah. I think the thing behind players like Doublelift and Bjergsen is they all kind of go through the same struggles when they're kind of growing up in the scene. And I think just the way they express it to the public is different. Whereas, like, I think when I first joined, Bjergsen kind of did the same stupid things like every 17, 18-year-olds do. Like, he would sneak out of the house, like, at night to, like, grab food with friends, and sometimes he wouldn't like argue in the best way with his teammates, and like he would like it's just a part of growing up, you know. And I think players like Spica, who are now going through the same thing, where first he was surrounded by veterans, and now he has like more voice in his team and how to take care of like, the players around him. And everyone makes mistakes. Doublelift has made mistakes. Some of them are very public. With Bjergsen, it's always been like he was always really good at reflecting on like, hey, maybe I shouldn't go out because the other players in my team are now gonna be like really pissed at me if they find out, and it kind of hurts when the next day you're not performing well. And it's just things like this you have to learn. He's been a guy who reflects in the background and figure things out. And I think I've never met someone who's read more like books about leadership. I've never met someone who, again, works on every part of what he needs to do to get better. And I think that's one of the cool development stories of a lot of these young guys like Jojo, Spica, Danny, and how they progress through their careers. I hope people are okay with the mistakes they make while they're growing up, because if you give them a chance, you can have another Bjergsen in your hands.
I think that conversation around leadership is very intriguing when you consider now the person that many have turned their attention to on the TSM side of things to assume that leadership position in Spica, right? Luckily, he had the privilege of playing alongside Bjergsen, being coached by him, and so there's that, there's at least that evidence, there's that example for him to maybe follow. But there's also something to be said for carving out your own unique way of leading, right? And I think that's going to be important for Spica ultimately to define for himself if this TSM squad is going to find success, Raz.
Yeah, because that initial balance of needing to focus on your own play, and because like he just came off of an MVP split, moment for him, and he still wanted to like, what could I have done better as a teammate so we can get past that final hurdle? I can imagine that. The other thing is like he has wide responsibilities now, being able to translate in game and stuff, make that his new teammates feel comfortable in the new environment. So there's a lot of responsibilities that he has while still trying to focus on his own play from week to week. And so it feels like a first step for him, trying to etch his way out as a leader. And he's doing it with a lot of young players. Like another great example is the fact that he's working with Tactical, who's now going up against the team that
That's true. We haven't even flipped the script, right? Yeah, you got TL playing against his old team as well, Emily.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't even I totally missed that, but yeah, Tactical is gonna be going up against TL. I think that's also where kind of previously when we were trying to diagnose like what TSM is struggling with, such an underrated part is how much Spica has kind of had to do since he's been this kind of bridge between the new players coming in and the two experienced players in Huni and Tactical. Or, I mean, I say Tactical is like experience because he has a lot of experience, but he's still actually pretty young.
Right.
And Spica himself is still pretty young. So having that kind of pressure, and also like the idea, I keep going back to this just because it's such an LPL thing, and I think it was a disconnect with Shenyi when he was on the team. The idea that when you're making a play, people are following up immediately, and like the act of making that play is also the call, right? And I saw some of that in Spica when you saw some of even his biggest disconnects. Like everyone remembers that Lilia ult at Worlds where you're just yelling. I'm sorry, Partha is like laughing at me right now. You're just yelling at the rest of the team, like, follow up, please. Like, this is an amazing play. So I hope that whatever communication is going on like at TSM, I think Spica is certainly a smart enough player to lead the team, and I definitely want to see that better communication between him and his laners going forward.
Well, we'll see if they can get it done. It's going to be a tall order for this TSM squad to take down a very dominant-looking Team Liquid. The wait is over, though. It's time for the King to face off against his former empire.
was on TSM for like 8 or 9 years, so of course people want to see me play against them. I'm excited to play against them. They got a win on the table this last week. Before that, it was looking pretty rough for them. Even in that game, it was looking pretty rough for them. But I think they're having some turmoil, but nonetheless, it's just a team that I absolutely want to beat, and it'll give me a lot of satisfaction to win against that team.
Oh, Bjergsen, we are indeed ready to see you play against them. Welcome, everybody. I'm Captain Flowers. That's Azael. And we get to open up today here with a little bit of TL versus TSM. We were talking a little bit beforehand. I told Azael this. When we looked over to the monitor and saw the clip of Bjergsen as coach for TSM walking onto the stage, I had to do a double take because I thought it was live and that Bjergsen showed up not in a jersey but in a suit just to style on his former team. I was about to give that Chad of the year.
That would have been amazing. Just come on the stage. Coach Bjergsen's here for your lesson.
Time to VoD review, boy.
Time to VoD review this solo kill I'm about to get.
All right. Let's see how it actually goes down on the Rift here, though. We're into picks and bans. Ryze, Gwen, Tryndamere banned out by TL. TSM banning away Zeri, Karma, and Tom Kench. Importantly, the Gwen was banned out by TL on blue side. This is almost universally a red side ban here in the first half of bans. So that does switch it up a little bit, but we will see the first pick Jinx for TL.
Yep, going to be going towards Jinx. If TSM doesn't grab Thresh, you have to imagine that Eyla is going to be able to grab that for himself to pair that up. One of those really, really strong duos. Jhin, the option here instead of the Ophelio, so that is kind of the third pick that does seem to be relatively popular. And they're going Nautilus here. It's almost like daring you to grab the Thresh anyway, because this is a matchup that a lot of people do prefer in that Thresh versus Nautilus. So Yursan going to be on comfort. This is also a champion that he has been playing a tremendous amount of, and has been going pretty well with the team, though, as Bjergsen was saying, TSM has been really having a lot of struggles. You know, this is first versus last. This is TSM, who's coming off of yesterday getting absolutely stomped by CLG, the other team that was down at the bottom of the standings. So they desperately need to try to get some momentum. You don't want to be ending that first half 1-8. That would be really a shocker based on the preseason expectations for this squad.
Well, they do have some playmaking capability with Jhin and Nautilus put together. We know the CC chain between these champions can be very effective. Jhin having the ability to participate in fights from a long way away. TL, they will grab the Thresh for Eyla, exactly like you were talking about. Their other pick in the first half of the draft will be the Graves, which is usually seen top lane these days.
And now we'll have to find out if Huni's going to actually answer that here, or if there was not going to be parity in those first 3 picks. And instead, they're going to go for the Lee Sin. So Spica going to be locking in his jungler, and then you generally can expect bans to be kind of targeted at the pick that hasn't happened yet. You know, TSM going to be throwing jungle bans. You expect TL potentially to be throwing some of those top lane bans. They could look to protect Bjergsen in mid lane as well, because he is going to have to blind here, given that we're assuming Keaiduo is going to go for that 5th pick. Santorin, though, going to be getting his Trundle banned away, something he is incredibly well known for. There's a lot of junglers still on the table, though. Nothing was getting banned in that first round, so you're not going to be able to fully knock him down. If that's the only one that you're worried about, that is fine, but there's still Udyr, there's Jhin, there's Hecarim. There's a lot of really high-tier junglers that are available, so TSM has kind of got to make that choice. Would you rather knock Bjergsen down another peg, or just continue to try to lower Santorin on that jungle totem pole?
I always find that an interesting thing to look at and have a conversation about during a draft is how effective is this ban in general, and how effective is it giving the context and the situation that we're in? Whereas you're talking about if the S and A tier of jungle combined has 6 or 7 picks in it.
Who cares?
Getting rid of one of them doesn't really mean a whole lot, unless, of course, there's something very specific that you're getting rid of it for.
Yeah, like if you're banning the player, that's where I sometimes think that banning the player makes more sense than banning the meta. If there's a bunch of champions that they can pick from and they're all pretty strong, well, ban what you think he's going to be most comfortable on. So they ban out the Trundle, they ban out the Volley. On the other side, it is going to be Jace to try to protect this Graves in that top lane matchup. Tryndamere is already banned out, so you know that's off the table. Huni could just go Gnar, and we've seen that kind of go both ways, where I think that's a pretty reasonable matchup. But Rumble getting locked in, so a bit of a difference here.
A Huni classic.
I wonder if this is going to be Rumble top. That's the obvious assumption, but Rumble mid does have some merit. It is something that we have seen in the past in these kind of roaming Rumble mids, where you just push and you roam and you try to fight around dragons and heralds.
Equalizers.
Could be something like that. I don't expect that to be a great matchup topside if he is going up against that Graves, because Graves with Fleet, I think you're going to be able to sustain through a lot of the Flame Splitter damage, really push heavily in on Huni if he is playing this Rumble. And Jhin locked in pretty much as expected. TSM going very stock and standard with 3 physical damage. It's going to be a control mage. It's going to be something like the Victor or the Corki, you know, pretty much guaranteed scaling. Instead, Zilean. Okay, so he's
classic for Bjergsen.
He's going to the classic pick here. The TSM Zilean used against TSM. Is betraying them with it. So they are pretty low on magic damage because Zilean is more of like a supportive style champion, more of a facilitation style champion. But it is going to be a very effective pick here. Speed up the Jinx in the late game, speed up the Jhin and buff him up in the early game. The Sylas getting locked in as that 5th pick really is a pretty nice answer to the Zilean, though. You know, it is a matchup that you can win early, and then you do get that utility of the Zilean ult for your own team. Besides that, I think that the Jhin Zhao ultimate is really, really strong. Being able to have that, you know, for that kind of parry zone, the protection is really nice. It's kind of like a miniature version of the combo we used to see all the time when Sylas would be picked into Alistar teams to have that Alistar. So this is kind of very similar to that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you look at the description of Sylas' ultimate, and for a lot of players, you start thinking, what has the highest AP ratio? What can I turn into an absolute orbital blast to just erase someone from Summoner's Rift? But then, in effect, the things that are the best for Sylas often appear to be those defensive options. Allow him to go in, be a melee carry without that proper counterplay, without that proper threat from range, and really just run amok in the team fights. And that, I think, is when he excels. It is when he looks the best. And we'll see if that's the secret weapon here for the side of TSM, if they can pop off, if they can take down a Team Liquid that is currently looking so strong. All right, let's go. It's the final day of Super Week, and we are going to kick it off here with a bang. TSM, let's see how the early game looks. Checking through our summoner spells, checking through our runes. Let's see, everything's pretty stock and standard here. I'm not seeing anything in particular that stands out too crazy for me.
I can't remember what team it was against, but remember last year, I want to say it was like the record for fastest first blood ever. TSM just tried to replicate that cheese, where they went 5-man sprint down mid with the Nautilus, and if the other player is slipping a little bit, not paying as much attention, you can actually get that flash Nautilus hook and get that insta-kill using your home guards. It's one of those plays that, you know, is rare to see it repeated.
Yeah.
I like the attempts on those, though, and it is pretty clever to see it happen.
Oh, boy.
This is at least going to be a mana flow ban.
Yeah, that'll be a nice little bit of damage. I was hoping maybe we would get, like, some absolute wild and craziness, but then on second look, I realized, yeah, there's actually
level
no
1 Zilean.
Yeah, there's no hard. I was like, oh man, there's Zhao, there's Zilean.
Take a clock.
None of this is actually useful at level 1, so I was just getting myself all hyped up for nothing. Now I feel bad. Hopefully, however, we get to see a little bit of spiciness here early on. Nope, the Rumble walks down, but they've already got that ward placed down. So for TSM, they'll have information that Santorin is starting here on the blue buff. You can see Spica starting in his own blue, so junglers pathing opposite directions here in the early game.
Yep. Huni is going to be going comment, so he is, of course, being the one piling the Rumble. I think it's nice to see Huni back on one of his signature picks, because TSM has been struggling, and I think sometimes when you're struggling, it's really just intelligent, just move towards comfort, play towards those styles that you really are adept at, and I think this is something that Huni has been good at for so long, so seeing him on the Rumble, get Spica on this early game jungler where he can have a lot of impact and see what they can get done. Because TSM need to start picking up some wins, need to start really, I think, just building some direction. You know, you don't have to have the best ever first half, and they do have some young players on there that they are trying to develop, but you want to at least feel like you're headed in the right direction, and so far it hasn't been the case.
And even in the game that they got the win in, right, when they took down the Golden Guardians, I believe it was, in that one, they were losing for 90% of the game. Yes, they had an awesome comeback. Yeah, they had that Hail Mary play. But in terms of developing as a team, in terms of getting better as a unit, that's not saying a lot of good things for you, because we kind of just managed to turn coal into gold at the very end, when in reality, we wanted to go mine the gold to begin with.
Yeah, I think it was the Immortals game, right, with the Smite top. That they
Oh,
did
yeah,
that.
that's right. That's
and
right.
it's one of those things where you can't rely on that strategy forever. You know, want to see them be able to pick up some wins with some more standard strategies. So, you know, yes, Rumble is a little bit outside the meta, but this is a pretty standard team comp. I'm going to be interested to see what they can pull off. I do think there's going to be a lot of value in stacking some armor here on the TSM side. They don't have any like true tanks that's just going to have 1 million armor, but TSM maybe getting dove here. 4-man bot for TL, trying to set this up. We'll see if Bjergsen can land a stun.
Bjergsen and Santorin are both ready to roll. Ayla's already going to start it off, but neither one of the bombs find their target. TL will back away after that one, but they get a teleport out of TSM and Keaiduo in the mid lane.
Exactly, that's actually a really big deal there because Keaiduo is not going to have his teleport now. Bjergsen still does. And I want to see this mid lane wave. It is actually just ever so slightly. It's pushing towards Bjergsen. So now, if he just holds that wave, it's going to push towards him. Keaiduo is going to have a lot of the CS actually denied from him. And you can see Bjergsen recognizes that. As a result, he's only going to last hit. He's not going to be spam auto-attacking. So all those minions, it's going to be at least 6 minions that have died. I think he already lost a full wave. So now we're on 7 with that melee going down where you miss that XP. And really, really nice stuff. From TSM, or rather against TSM here, to create a small advantage without a lot of risk, right? You know, they didn't pull off the dive, but Bjergsen didn't really lose anything for going for it, and you're taxing resources from this Sylas.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at summoner spells, I don't really feel like there was a whole lot of intent to go all the way, super send it, kill or nothing in the bottom side there for TL. Eyla still has Ignite. I feel like that's the one summoner spell that you always see committed instantly if it really is a kill shot, and that's just letting us know, hey, this is a win for Team Liquid in that point.
Yep, exactly. So well done by them. We'll have to see what TSM can do as a response, trying to invade here, get a little bit of vision, trying to take over this side of the jungle.
Nothing there, unfortunately.
Potentially see if they could find someone, but at the very least, they now know, hey, jungler's not bot side, guess what? He's top side. You get that information through the inference of where he's going to be. Spica will be able to take away the Raptors as Keaiduo just pushes in. And Nautilus hadn't been showing, so it's not like you can just try to cover that as Bjergsen and try to do any sort of a 2v2 play.
Right.
Because you know Nautilus is missing bot. Tactical's playing safe down there, so things going pretty well. Up on that top side, you can see that Huni has already committed his teleport in response. And going to be just... I'm interested to see where he goes. I think Rocket Belt is what I've seen the most commonly purchased on Rumble lately. You know, just being able to close the gap with that is actually quite nice, and it helps to really empower that wave clear.
Spell Pen too, I mean, it's one of Rumble's best friends. This champion's always been known as such a powerful mid-game spiking champion. Having that extra Spell Pen, especially if opponents are not going to be building a ton of MR, which, I mean, when we look at the composition from TL, they're really not. Yursan's going to be taken down to pretty low, however, below 100 HP, even one more shot, and Team Liquid gets first blood before TSM can get back up to the scene.
Straight up 2v2 kill there onto Yursan. They made it look very, very easy. Yursan, no flash available, I believe. In the Glacial Augment, you just can't really get out unless you can actually hook away. And I think he hooked in to maybe proc his Aftershock, but Bwipo now face check there.
Okay, there comes your equalizer. Huni's trying to outplay it, see if he can do anything here. He nearly takes Bwipo out. However, Bjergsen was nearby with the Chrono Shift to be able to bring him back, even if he did fall. Huni has to spend ult and flash, but he stays alive.
He does stay alive. At the very least, they got the ult out of Bjergsen, and Bjergsen doesn't have a ton of CDR now, so that's somewhat relevant. The flash being forced is nice, but Bwipo, at the very least, did miss a little bit of farm. And Huni actually might catch him slipping here. Oh, Bwipo is very low. He does have flash, so he shouldn't die, but at the very least, he's going to push him out.
He'll be just fine there. Gets himself back over the wall, has the dash to be able to do that, and now he can reset. No teleport, of course, to get back into lane, so he will have to hoof it all the way back up here. You can see Huni sticking around, wants to get this next one shoved up, get those underneath the turret as quick as possible, and guarantee that things equalize back afterwards.
Yep, absolutely. Just going to be continually shoving that in. Will maintain a CS advantage. Is a cannon wave, so it's a good time for Bwipo to base anyway. But he'll at least lose, you know, the one melee minion, maybe the cannon as well. So things going pretty well there for Huni, and I do think armor is going to be super, super effective here for TSM. Again, no true tank, and we didn't really get to kind of flesh that out. But there's multiple good Zhonya's builders. Obviously, you know, Rumble and Sylas are eventually going to want to build the Zhonya's. We're probably going to see Tabbies or something along those lines from Spica. Death Dance can be really strong in games like this. You know, you don't have to full commit to armor to still get a lot of value. because with Zilean really being the only magic damage, it's not that threatening. Zilean is not a high DPS champion. You can do decent burst on squishies with the bombs, but you really are more there to enable, to slow down, to speed up, to have the ult, have the CC, and that's going to be his job.
Yeah, when I look at bruiser champions like Lee Sin, two items that immediately come to mind as typically more aggressive options, but ones that really feel good against heavy AD compositions are the Death's Dance and the Guardian Angel, both that can give you a strong defensive option, mostly against AD champions in terms of the stat profile. So doesn't feel nearly as good to build that if it's just constant AP threats against you, but hey, that's not the case this time around. TSM will have those options for their jungler, but let's see what that jungler's up to now, because the Rift Herald has been started. Spica has Keaiduo and Huni here to help him. Yursan as well. The only TSM player not in the area is Tactical, who's still staying bottom. Super Mega Death Rocket fired up, hits Keaiduo for 20% HP, no big deal. Free Herald for TSM.
Yep, they're going to be able to get that. And I like that they didn't overcommit and send Tactical all the way up now, too. The only question is, can they actually keep Tactical off this? Hans does cash in on one plate. Bjergsen's roaming down, so they're trying to really keep him pushed off and deny a lot of this farm from him. But as Yursan arrives, as Spica moves down to the side of the map, Tactical will be able to move forward and collect most of it. So almost gets that that second plate, or 2.5, I guess, down. Still pretty valuable push there for Hansama, and you're going to say it's a worthwhile trade for TL.
And I like to see that, because I remember you calling this out specifically so many times in the past, is teams recognizing their opponents taking Rift Herald, sending a bunch of men all the way up there for this battle that never ends up happening, when you could have just made this play instead. Rift Herald is guaranteed to get you 2 plates. Hansama just got 2 plates.
Exactly, and I like on the other side that TSM didn't overcommit Tactical, because they realized they didn't actually need all 5, so they send 4 up, they leave Tactical bot. As a result, yes, you still lose the 2 plate spot, but the experience is gained by Tactical. He's not very far behind. Huni, little poke equalizer there to push him in. We'll just kind of force Bwipo back over the wall here. But Bwipo getting chunked out and honestly getting bullied pretty heavily. He is still going kind of just for the lethality, very aggressive build. He didn't decide to go a little bit more defensive. If he wanted to play it more for farm, I think he honestly could have just gotten an early vamp or even moved towards like Hexdrinker or something like that. But Bwipo is a very aggressive player, and Huni is kind of taking advantage of that, because until Bwipo gets some more sustain in,
oh, nice kick back onto Bjergsen there, but he does get the ulti off in time.
On cooldown.
Ayla's coming to try to help him, so they're going to get the flash out of the TL mid laner, but now Spica, he'll die next. Stolen Chrono Shift brings him back. It is a battle of resurrections, but it's TSM who get the first real kill here in the mid lane. Now Spica's got to try to get out. That bomb will explode, but it will not take him down. That fight goes TSM's way.
Nicely done there by TSM. Spica had a really good kick. They get the flash off Bjergsen. They get the ultimate down. And Keaiduo has that stolen ult, but Tactical now in trouble.
Oh, Hansama's looking for him there. The zap didn't connect. That was huge. It's the only thing that kept Tactical alive. And now he'll fire back. Hansama gets away. Ayla's ready to block the shots. Both AD carries, Azael dancing with death on that one.
Yeah, Hans looking confident. Look for the W. Oh, man, that was close. I'm not sure if it actually hit Eyla or if it missed both of them. Either way, good bit of blocking there. Eyla gets down in time. Otherwise, it would have had to be a flash probably from Hans, because Tactical was on point with the connections there. Here we can see it one more time. Spica on the wraparound coming from this other side of your screen. They land the hook. Yursan hits it. Q, ward hop, kick, flash all the way through. They force out that ulti from Bjergsen. He has to flash because Eyla had already spent the ultimate, then committing here onto Spica, but the Sylas ulti is up, so Spica goes in, gets a little bit of damage. The cooldowns come back up from Yursan and Keaiduo, and they can go in with that CC to get a kill, force out another flash. It's a nice play for TSM, and they're even going to be able to grab Dragon off this, which is going to have them feeling pretty damn good.
Yeah, TSM, they've got themselves that neutral objective in the Herald. Now they've got the first Drake as well. That Herald is going to need to be used very soon. You can see in the inventory there, remember that the item has about 4 minutes of use time, so every quarter of that circular cooldown looking thing that you don't have an exact number for, you can just generally evaluate that as a minute. So hey, half a minute left to use the Herald. I want to see TSM get whatever value they can.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to drop it pretty soon. It's always kind of that embarrassing moment when you pick this up as a jungler and you're like, ooh, I have to drop it randomly.
Oh no,
like,
I have to throw it in the base.
Herald spawns by the wolf pit. You're like, ooh, we hate to see it happen. So they're going to head mid. He's going to have to drop it pretty much right now. So just going to go mid, push it in, drop that Herald. Bjergsen will be able to get some damage done, but you can't actually interrupt that Herald cast. So they will cash out. on those couple plates and at least get the expected value of just that 2 plates back. And they can even move straight up towards topside. Bwipo has no TP, so you threaten this roam. Bwipo sees it coming, but he's on the run now, and he may be caught out in the wrong spot here. He's wrapped up.
Oh, this looks like a eulogy for poor Bwipo. Equalizer gets placed down. He's going to try to outplay for now. Turret shot hits Huni. Bjergsen's teleport will be able to keep his top laner alive. Super Mega Death Rocket flies out just in case TSM would have gone for the dive, but they don't, so goes wide.
This is like the inverse play of what we saw TL do, right? You know, early on, Bjergsen moved down towards bot side, force out Keaiduo's TP. Now, Keaiduo goes top side, forces out Bjergsen's TP. But TSM posturing for a fight.
Okay, Yursan goes in for the engage. It's Eyla the target, and he's already gone. Yursan trying to get away, but the ignite keeps on ticking, and it burns him down 1 for 1. Supports are gone, and the AD carry battle clearly goes the way of Hans Sama after.
Yeah, Hans has that extra range in the rocket form, and he has his mythic complete as well, so you gotta play with respect to that. And I've got to point out, Bjergsen is just too good at farming on Zilean. It's actually crazy to me that he's
over
basically
10 per minute.
Yeah, he's basically at 150 CS almost here at 14 minutes. And Zilean is actually so trash at farming in the early game. Like in the early levels, pre-lost chapter.
He doesn't look trash to me, Isaac.
Yeah, I mean, it turns out if you don't miss CS, you get a lot of gold, right? I guess that's how it is. That's what I've been doing wrong. It's easy at a certain point, but the early stages where you can be pressured, where your cooldowns are long, where the bomb thresholds are weird, it can be very difficult to last hit perfectly, and Bjergsen's pulled it off. You know, it's not the most impactful thing in the entire game, but it is constantly impressive to watch this guy play and just realize, well, yeah, he clearly has put in the time. He has the mechanics, he has the knowledge, he can play this champion, you know, at such a high level that it just always gets value, it seems like.
And that farm value in the mid lane as well as in the bottom lane here for Hans Sama, who not only has a massive farm advantage over his opponent of about 3 waves, but also took the entire turret, including pretty much all of the plates there. Yeah, Hans Sama is just packed with money. These guys are so rich right now. And even though the score is 2-2, even though we were praising TSM for being able to make good map calls similar to what TL was doing, and also for having these first 2 neutral objectives, it's TL who are enjoying the money.
Absolutely. I mean, they are in the better spot. You know, TSM is the big underdog in this matchup, and that's kind of why I want to give some credit to TSM when they are making these correct plays. You know, this is the 10th place team playing against the first place team, right? Yeah. And you have to look at it like that. You know, Parth was kind of talking about it on Waiting Room. You know, it's a fully new org. You know, he put it as though a new team has joined the league, right? You know, it's new players, it's new coaches, it's new everything for TSM, and they are kind of in this rebuilding phase right now.
It always takes time.
It does take time, and you know, expectations were definitely that they would be starting off better than they are. But this is a tough one to expect you to win when you're this far down. Bjergsen, pretty big level lead, donating some experience over to Santorin. And the concerning thing about a Jinx getting ahead, I mean, that's always going to be concerning because Jinx scales so incredibly well. But when you have the Zilean behind you, it enables you to use that gold way more effectively with the additional move speed.
Incredible.
And you can just play so aggressively in their face because you know you have that Zilean in your pocket.
Oh, tactical. Trying to get away here as TL siege up on that tier 1 turret. A little bit more damage. Nice root comes out, and immediately Keaiduo is destroyed. TL put that together, picture perfect.
Yeah, Keaiduo wanted the TP in, but really TSM can't walk forward into that. And the tower was getting so low that they can always go for the dive because the tower's going to die immediately after he arrives. Great timing, great patience there from TL. It's actually better to let the TP come through and get the kill than it is to cancel the TP in that case. So getting the tower very low, but not finishing it before he arrives. They land the CC, they burst them down. They should grab Dragon off this as well as that's about to spawn. You can see Santorin's down on that bottom side. I think he'll just grab that up for himself. Yes, Huni is having a pretty nice laning phase. You know, he did get that tower down on top with some of the pressure that they've actually put up there. But Bwipo's still getting his farm. Bwipo's still, you know, nearly 10 CS per minute. It's not like you put the Graves out of the game by any means.
Right.
And Huni's still not going to be nearly as powerful as the most powerful members on TL. So we'll see what TSM wants to do. I think one thing that is kind of working in their favor is that, you know, Zilean really excels against single target damage, and at the very least, TSM has some pretty good AoE damage with that Rumble. Yeah. That makes it, if you can get a multi-man equalizer, you know, if multiple people are getting hit by that and really getting splashed up on damage, you have to pick and choose. You can't just ult everyone and save them. It's not like when you're playing against Syndra and Syndra ult one person, you always have that easy, obvious target. So that could make things more difficult. And TSM going to be able to grab this mid lane tier 1. So keeping the gold here pretty close, and we'll see if they want to fight come next dragon, utilizing that rumble.
Ooh, curtain call's already opened up. He's looking for Hans, but instead they're gonna get Bwipo. TSM, they just go for the dog pile down mid lane with the second Herald. They end up nearly getting the tier 2 turret, and they're gonna pick up the kill on Bwipo to keep the kills tied up.
And they will get the tier 2 turret here with the wave coming in. So gold should be in their favor, if not, you know, dead even. It's going to be really, really nice. So yeah, pretty much dead even off of that.
75 gold.
70 gold, who cares? But Hans on 2 items very, very quickly. Some more gold going to tactical off that. So he should be closing in on his second item, which is going to be really nice. And he's got another 1100 in pocket. So just about there on the rapid fire we can expect. And I think we're kind of just waiting for this next dragon, because TSM, when you go Rumble, you've got to fight around objectives. You really have to be willing to do it. Cloud, I feel like we've been getting so many Cloud Souls, which isn't the ideal one.
No.
But it is definitely still powerful, and flat move speed's really nice. I always think, in particular on Jhin, it feels really, really good for a lot of the marksmen, because Jhin already has a ton of move speed from his passive and from those crit hits and stuff. And then the 10% can really kind of put it over the top, especially if you are going to be going, you know, Swifties. It looks like he may just be going Cavies with that cloth armor he's sitting on, so
but again,
do what he wants to do.
That makes a lot of sense considering the threats that he has to deal with. I mean, Xin will always be diving on you, and then any of the range damage that you take, it's 2 different marksman champions. Zilean should not be able to constantly strap bombs to your head. As
Something's
Jhin.
going wrong if he
Yeah,
can.
that's not an ideal gameplay scenario. At that point, there's something more wrong than the item.
Yeah, and we can see it's going to be Death Dance second here for Spica, so kind of expected there. Huni is just building some heal cut. He has his rocket belt. He may go towards the Zhonya's next. He could also delay that quite a bit. It looks like Keaiduo is just going for straight up Zhonya's second. You can sometimes just sit on the stopwatch, complete another item, and then go it later on, like go Cosmic or whatever. So there are options there, but second item through for tactical. A lot of completions coming through across the board. Bahan still showing his strength, has an additional BF plus the tier 2 boots completed. He is really, really strong. The earlier locket is there for Eyla, so unless some of these item completions come through prior to the next dragon fight, I don't know if TSM will even want to fight when they're down completed pieces.
Bwipo will pick up the rest of this wave here, force Keaiduo back now too. Spica is hovering around the area in the enemy jungle once again. Oh, but Keaiduo is going to stop here in the brush to try to fight back against Bwipo. Goes for the stasis there to make sure he doesn't die, but it's Hans Sama guaranteeing it with Super Mega Death Rocket Brand Insurance. Flash away from the equalizer. Bwipo trying to kite it out and fight it out and stay alive however he can. However, that minion wave walking up means the shotgun is not going to do it. But while TSM are responding to Team Liquid's top laner, Team Liquid are taking advantage across the map. They're going for the Baron. Nobody's nearby to stop it. This should be a freebie for the side of TL. You will take that trade daily, nightly, and ever so right.
That's huge. I mean, you killed the guy with the cigar, but they got the big purple worm, and TSM not going to be feeling too good about that trade at the end. They committed not only their jungler down there, but I mean, Keaiduo got pushed back, so he's running. Huni has the TP, and this is just the pressure that Bwipo is able to actually create. You know, you look at the minimap, TL are already up in this area, already around this top side, creating vision. And as Keaiduo gets pushed out, it's just everyone calling to actually support him. Spica moves down. The TP comes in from Huni. TL know now, all right, he's dead. Jungler's bot. Top laner's bot. The only people that could possibly be here is to support in the AD. And I think they even saw that Tactical was roaming down. So, you know, it's just a massive amount of people moving down to this bottom side. You see Jhin moving back up towards Baron, but a big overcommitment. It's right at 20 minutes, so I think Baron wasn't even on their mind, but with this Jinx this fed, they could do it no problem.
Well, the equalizer comes down as TL tries to get out of the flames and make sure that they don't lose too much HP. Bjergsen's teleport is going to bring him in with the rest of the squad. The Baron enchanted minions are there to provide the tanking, and Hans Sama's got the damage. Tier 2 turret falls here in the top lane. Team Liquid lead grows to 2,500. Still tier 2 turrets standing in the other 2 lanes, and TL are going to rotate over to those next.
Yeah, but it doesn't bode well when you can't even force the locket out with your equalizer there.
Yeah.
You know, he had it available. Ayla's like, nah, no, I just don't really even need it. So
not a big deal.
They're going to be pushing on that bottom side. Bwipo just constantly shoving, creating that pressure, drawing people to him. TL are on the chase, though. to try to meet up with this wave on bot side. Baron buff it up before it can actually be cleared out, and Spica may be caught.
Oh, Spica, he got greedy for the blue buff, and although he took it, Ayla's the one wearing it now. A pick on the jungler feels great for TL, and the War Machine ain't stopping. They just keep this push going. Bottom lane tier 2, mid lane tier 2, inhibitor turret line now under siege. TSM is feeling the heat on this one.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been about the kills, but TL are making this game look so easy. It is 23 minutes, and you're uncontested, just pushing into the base, taking the inhibitors. They got so many towers with this power play. Look at that, plus 5,200 gold already, and they have 40 seconds remaining on it. They can retreat back to the dragon if they want to reset. Just grab that dragon for yourself, move another one closer to Soul, pillage away the jungle. TL are absolutely slamming TSM, and TSM still haven't even been able to have like a single decent fight with the Rumble. It's just haven't been able to get anything happening.
Okay, well, the Drake is alive, and TSM are able to scare Team Liquid away from this one. Bjergsen has pretty much no mana to work with, almost entirely useless as the Zilean. Equalizer plus Curtain Call means that you're not wanting to fight there in that choke point. So, hey, TL will have to give away that Drake, but they're fine to make that trade for what they got.
They absolutely are, and the biggest deal was that Hans actually reset. So you don't want to fight without him. He's the strongest guy right now. He went back to base, completed a full IE, plus got a stopwatch. So
oh boy,
he's just so monstrously fed, and they basically said, we have so much gold in pocket, it's not worth risking a fight at this dragon when it's only their second dragon. Like, who cares? They get one individual cloud. They're not close to Soul. So instead, prioritizing just spending all the gold that they got off that Baron play. And now, there's no contesting Han Sama. He has both summoners, he has a Zilean behind him, he has a stopwatch, and he's
Thresh next to him.
A full IE ahead. So,
it's just
good luck.
It's a lot, man. It is a lot indeed. TSM grouped up as 4. Keaiduo a little bit split away from the rest of the squad there to arrive on the flank if he can. Bottom lane inhibitor is already broken, remember? The other two lanes do have their inhibitor turrets still intact. Baron is not back up on the map for another 2 minutes, so TSM don't have to worry about TL making that play just yet. But it's still a 5,000 gold lead for TL, and it's still a situation where all of this darkness, all of this fog of war in their own jungle is so scary for TSM, because as soon as somebody gets caught out, it turns into this. Now, TSM are going to get one back in retaliation, so at least it's a 1-for-1 across the map, but it's TL with a better position as they have their minions flooding into the bot lane. They've got their minions coming into the top lane to help them push this remaining turret. A 1-for-1 is not so even after all.
No, not at all, because, I mean, they're at your base. They have the push. TSM have to go for these types of picks. I mean, Bwipo hasn't been that involved in the game, but the pressure, when they're going for him, they're having to send so many members. It's all going to be about this potential flank from Spica. The only conceivable way they win a fight is if you kick in Hans and kill him instantly, and he doesn't even react in time to the chompers.
Spica wants to get away. Nice kick to disengage. He had to flash just to get out, though,
brutal.
And losing that playmaking opportunity at this point in the game just feels like losing so much of that chance for the miracle comeback.
I think his camera wasn't on his own character because he just didn't react to the chompers in time there. You know, he threw in the chompers to actually, you know, check the brush, and he didn't react, so they get activated, and then you have to flash. And now, Bjergsen catching out Huni.
Okay, Huni's gonna get caught here. It doesn't look good. Oh, Hans's rocket, man. That's an Infinity Edge rocket right there. Just write the name on the side of it.
It's brutal, man. You just can't move when you're going up against that Zilean. It's a double slow onto Huni there. He didn't even need a double bomb. He just double slows him 99% slow. As Ayla's down to take this fight, who cares? In goes Hans.
Well, Keaiduo wants to knock him away there with the Zhao. See, but Hans, man. Oh, the damage from Hans, it's so much. TSM, they're still trying to deal with this. Yursan's running away from Bwipo. Spica's alive, but remember, he already had to use his flash earlier. A stasis comes out to guarantee the Team Liquid support is not killed by the Jhin ulti in response.
Oh, man. This is like one of those things where you want to beat up your friend in a game, so you challenge them to the game. You know, Bjergsen's like, I hate TSM, I'll smash you, you know, you're having some fun with it. But then you start beating them too bad, and you're like, this is kind of feeling bad. Don't worry, dude. You're really good.
Yeah,
you know,
it's like, my character's just broken. Don't worry, I'm just playing.
You know,
yeah,
I played this game a lot more than you. Really.
You're just hoping he doesn't get up and leave
I'm
at
getting
this
lucky.
point.
You know, it's my bad. So Bjergsen gonna help finish this one out.
Bjergsen definitely gave the rest of TSM the Mad Catz controller on this one. He is player one, and he ain't shy
Little brother
about
isn't
it.
even plugged in, man.
Oh man, Team Liquid takes down TSM not even 28 minutes into the game. It wasn't an avalanche of kills, but it was controlled by Team Liquid the whole mid-game through to the end.
Yep, Coach Bjergsen makes his return here against TSM, but he's sitting down to play, and it's looking really clean from TL. Absolutely stomped him. Not much more you can say about that one. TSM didn't really get anything going. I think kind of the lone bright spot, I felt like Huni had some pressure in top lane, early on. They did have that nice skirmish around mid with the stolen Zilean ult.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like TSM was ever able to really set anything up. They never set up around Dragons or Heralds to actually get a 5v5 with the Rumble. TL was always the one dictating what was happening in the game. They were the one choosing where you fight, when you fight. And Bwipo, despite actually being pressured early, by the enemy jungler, by Huni, they were having to send multiple members to stop him later on. The Rumble's not able to kind of continue to deal with Graves in the later stages in those side lanes. So as they overcommit and they send multiple members to actually answer him, they lose Baron on the other side of the map, and that felt like that was pretty much game over.
When you have to have multiple enemies deal with your guy who is 0-3 in top lane, it feels great. It's free pressure. It creates so much space.
That's the unironic
It's just
making space,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah,
it's
you
not
are
there, you're
making
running it down.
space.
He's actually making space. Like, Huni had the TP down, the mid laner dies, Tactical's roaming down, Spica's down there, and it's post 20 minutes where TL has vision on Baron.
Yeah. And when we saw him even use the flash to get away from the equalizer and the deadly flourish there, he's not flashing because he thinks he's going to stay alive. He's running towards the enemy base. He knows where he's going. And it doesn't matter because that flash buys another 10 seconds, creates a world where there's no possible opportunity for TSM to challenge for the Baron. 20-minute Baron wins a lot of games of League of Legends.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're farming that well. I mean, Bjergsen was super ahead of the curve. He was farming incredibly well. Hans got really rich from the early plates, as well as how well he was farming and had the Zilean support. So experience is getting injected into his teammates. He has that protection. He can play aggressively, and he made the most out of it. TL looking really, really clean this weekend.
Well, with a win against his former team under his belt, we're going to join Bjergsen with LeTigress for our Verizon post-game interview.
Thank you, Captain Flowers. Off of this Team Liquid victory against TSM, I am joined by Bjergsen on the stage. Way back when you did a Horizon Esports interview during your time in Korea, you already declared it was a mini goal of yours to take down TSM during the season. How do you feel now that you have achieved the feat?
Well, it feels really good, obviously. I had to wait till I think this is the final game of the round robin, so they're the final opponent for us to play, which was a long time to wait. And TSM hasn't been looking so hot recently, so I thought that might be a way that we can lose is we come in and underestimate them. But I told my teammates, like, guys, we need to take this seriously. We need to beat TSM, and that's what we did.
Yeah, you sure did, closing out the game in 28 minutes. I know you obviously have a lot of connection still to members of TSM, Spica and you being very close, having those wagers of getting him Air Force Ones when you were coaching him in the past. Did you speak to him at all going into this match or create any wagers now?
No, I didn't really talk to them too much in the pregame because I wanted them to sweat, I didn't want them to feel comfortable by me talking to them because I really just came in wanting to crush them. When we're on the stage, they're not my friends; they're my opponents to beat. But I'll definitely have some banter with them after the game.
There were a lot of cool elements to this game as well. We had you on the Zilean. We also had Huni on the Rumble on the opposite side. Did you have any thoughts about that? The fact that we got to see such signature picks in the same matchup.
I actually said it, I think last night in the draft meeting. I was like, if TSM really thinks if they're not in a very good state, Huni might just luck in the Rumble and try to carry the game that way because that's a signature champion that he just pulls out and he kind of has the ability to carry on. So I thought it was kind of funny that I predicted that, and it just made the game more exciting. I think they really played the way I feel like they should play, where they put Huni on a comfortable carry champion and they tried to play to him and give him a lot of resources, and it almost worked for them, but their ball lane was just getting crushed. So.
In the end, it was all of Team Liquid that were looking extremely comfortable throughout that. Bringing it a bit more to your play on the Zilean, Azael was specifically noting how good your farm was. Obviously, all of that practice having a heavy effect. We've seen Zilean a couple times throughout the league. Any tips in general when it comes to that pick and bringing it to the stage or even in people's solo queue games there? Because they're always looking to you for advice on the pick.
I don't want to give too many tips because now other mid laners are actually starting to play Zilean, which I'm like, that's my champion. Can you guys not play it? But it does take a lot of repetition. Like you said, CSing can be really difficult. The bombs can kind of mess up your creeps or can put your wave in an awkward state because it might AoE the minions too much. And I think people have a hard time balancing buffing your teammates versus slowing the enemy and looking for the stuns, but still having the awareness to ult your teammates at the right time. So I don't think it's a necessarily super complicated champion, but just one that you have to put a lot of games on. And yeah, I think other players just aren't there yet. They haven't put in the time.
It looked like in general you were having a lot of fun during this game, even going back to Champion Select, hovering over Shen, hovering over Master Yi, a bit of the switcheroo. Can you tell me a bit more about your general demeanor on Team Liquid, whether the fun having or just kind of this levity that we're noticing overall?
I think it's both. I think the team and the org knows when to have fun and when to get serious. I think oftentimes we have a lot of fun in the pregame, and then when the Champions Select starts, we're like, all right, let's get serious. Today, it carried a little bit further into the Champions Select, and I just, okay, after we do these hovers or whatever it is, then let's take it serious and not underestimate them. So I think it's a good balance. You know, you want to have a good team atmosphere and know when to have fun, but you don't want to carry that fun into the game for too long.
You even said it yourself that you made sure you and the rest of the team were taking this seriously going against TSM. You have now officially ended your Super Week. TL still looking strong, top of the standings. Thoughts having 4 weeks completed in the regular season with 4 more to come before we hit playoffs?
Well, I think we're still far from the team that we will be in playoffs. I'm starting to see glimpses of moments where we're starting to kind of synergize and be on the same page and see the game the same way, but we really haven't played together that long yet, and we've been playing both with Eyla and Korra, which of course kind of changes up the dynamics of the team a little bit. But I feel really good with our improvements over the last couple weeks, and I think we haven't even been performing particularly well, but we're still winning. I think the other teams really need to step up because we're going to be a monster in a few weeks.
All right, well, Team Liquid fans definitely like seeing a monster on the stage and in the weeks to come. Bjergsen, it's always a pleasure catching up with you on the stage.
Thank you.
We got more matches to come, everybody. We are going to be kicking it to a break, but on the other side, it is a story of some monster rookies and some resurging teams here in the LCS as Evil Geniuses take on CLG. Don't miss it.
You know, when I was coming back here, they were all talking to me. They're like, coach, coach, coach. And I was like, not anymore, bro. And Jack is like, yeah, I'm sure you're happy about that.
Oh, my God. A little bit more damage. Nice root. Comes out and immediately Keaiduo is destroyed. Oh, but Keaiduo is going to stop here in the brush to try to fight back against Bwipo. Goes for the stasis there to make sure he doesn't die, but it's Hans Sama guaranteeing it. Okay, Huni's going to get caught here. It doesn't look good. Oh, Hans's rocket, man. That's an Infinity Edge rocket right there. Just write the name on the side of it.